So today, the United States launched a trade war against Canada, their closest partner and ally, their closest friend. At the same time, they're talking about working positively with Russia, appeasing Vladimir Putin, a lying, murderous dictator. Make that make sense. Canadians are reasonable, and we are polite, but we will not back down from a fight.
Breaking news: Canada has fired back after the U.S. imposed steep tariffs on Canadian goods, escalating tensions between the two allies. In a powerful address, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau condemned the U.S. government's actions, calling it a trade war and announcing immediate countermeasures. He directly addressed both the American public and President Donald Trump, questioning the logic of punishing Canada while working positively with Russia. The United States has launched a trade war against Canada, its closest ally and partner, Trudeau declared. Meanwhile, they are choosing to work positively with Russia and Vladimir Putin, a known authoritarian leader. How does that make sense?
So today, the United States launched a trade war against Canada, their closest partner and ally, their closest friend. At the same time, they're talking about working positively with Russia, appeasing Vladimir Putin, a lying, murderous dictator. Make that make sense. Canadians are reasonable, and we are polite, but we will not back down from a fight. Not when our country and the well-being of everyone in it is at stake. At the moment, the U.S. tariffs came into effect in the early hours of this morning, and so did the Canadian response. Canada will be implementing 25% tariffs against $155 billion worth of American goods, starting with tariffs on $30 billion worth of goods immediately, and tariffs on the remaining $125 billion of American products in 21 days' time.
In response, Canada will impose its own 25% tariffs on $155 billion worth of American products. Trudeau confirmed that $30 billion in tariffs would take effect immediately, with the remaining $125 billion rolling out in 3 weeks if the U.S. does not reverse course. Canada is also considering further trade restrictions, including limitations on key American exports such as energy and alcohol.
Your government has chosen to put American jobs at risk at the thousands of workplaces that succeed because of materials from Canada or because of consumers in Canada, or both. They've chosen to raise costs for American consumers on everyday essential items like groceries and gas, on major purchases like cars and homes, and everything in between. They've chosen to harm American national security, impeding access to the abundant critical minerals, energy, building materials, and fertilizers that we have and that the United States needs to grow and prosper. They've chosen to launch a trade war that will, first and foremost, harm American families.
The economic fallout has already begun. The U.S. stock market plunged nearly 1,300 points over 2 days, while experts predict rising inflation and increased prices on essential goods like groceries and gas. Major American industries, especially those dependent on Canadian materials, are bracing for potential disruptions. Manufacturing, agriculture, and even bourbon producers in Kentucky could face significant losses if the trade war continues. Despite the U.S. administration's claim that the tariffs are tied to Canada's efforts against fentanyl trafficking, Trudeau dismissed this as a false pretext. "We don't want this," he said, speaking directly to American citizens. "We value our friendship with the American people. But your government has chosen this path, and it will hurt American families first and foremost."
Trade war that will, first and foremost, harm American families. They've chosen to sabotage their own agenda that was supposed to usher in a new golden age for the United States. Now, the legal pretext your government is using to bring in these tariffs is that Canada is apparently unwilling to help in the fight against illegal fentanyl. Well, that is totally false. Let's look at the facts. Our border is already safe and secure. Far less than 1% of fentanyl flows and less than 1% of illegal crossings into the United States comes from Canada. But we acted because we know we can always do better. We responded to concerns, including from the President, by implementing an ambitious $1.3 billion border plan. A border plan that includes generational investments in new AI and imaging tools to stop the flow of fentanyl in its tracks, stronger coordination and information sharing with American agencies, along with the deployment of drones, helicopters, and additional personnel to keep our border secure. Our actions are working. As the U.S. Customs and Border Protection just acknowledged, there was a 97% drop in fentanyl seizures from January compared to December, to a near zero low of less than half an ounce seized in January.
The situation is drawing sharp criticism from economists, security experts, and political analysts. Former NATO Supreme Allied Commander Wesley Clark warned that these actions threaten U.S. national security by weakening alliances while benefiting adversaries. Even the conservative-leaning Wall Street Journal slammed the move as the dumbest in history, arguing that Trump is punishing friends rather than dealing with real economic threats. With tensions at an all-time high, the question now is, what happens next? Trudeau has made it clear that unless the U.S. backs down, Canada is prepared to escalate further, potentially targeting energy exports that could drive up electricity and gas prices for American consumers. Meanwhile, businesses on both sides of the border are scrambling to assess the long-term impact of these tariffs. This is shaping up to be one of the most significant trade conflicts in recent history. Will either side back down, or is this just the beginning of a prolonged economic battle? Let us know your thoughts in the comments, and stay tuned for updates as this developing story unfolds.